All right, we are back for Roundtable Dolphins episode 5. This is a special one. I am here with my co-host Billie Melissa, and we are going to be discussing the breaking news, not so much breaking, but the brand new news in the world of Dolphins football, and that is the Miami Dolphins finally have a new head coach in former Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley.
You got your guy. Congrats,
Yeah,
Miami.
Yeah, honestly, this is not really a big shock that Hafley was hired. He was kind of already the favorite that everybody kind of more or less knew and understood. Um, there was movement from a few teams. Obviously, the New York Giants brought in John Harbaugh, and then the Atlanta Falcons brought in Kevin Stefanski. The Dolphins did have a second interview planned with Kevin Stefanski, but he went with the Falcons job. Now, what makes this hiring pretty, I would say, surprising is that the world was shocked to learn that the Buffalo Bills fired Sean McDermott on
Hmm.
Monday. And with that news, that did not dissuade or did not stop the Dolphins from bringing in Hafley. Um, I'm a little kind of shocked that they didn't. I would have expected that the Dolphins brass may have paused to give Sean McDermott a call, regardless of the divisional aspect of it. Sean McDermott is a winning coach. He is a playoff winning coach. He is a winner, and the
Hmm.
similarly to John Harbaugh, he knows how to win. He was with the Bills since the 2017 season, posting an overall record of 98 and 50 with an 8 and 8 playoff record. Now, obviously, the drawback for John Harbaugh as well as Sean McDermott is that neither of them could get their teams to the Super Bowl. Well, John Harbaugh did do that, but that was a long time ago. He hasn't done that with the likes of Lamar Jackson, which is why the Ravens moved on. In the same situation for the Bills, you have that generational talent in Josh Allen, who has literally carried the team on his back for multiple seasons, and you just can't get to the Super Bowl. So a change needed to be made.
Yeah, I think it's like the same thing as the Giants, really, isn't it? Is the Dolphins and Giants are kind of seeking very different things that the Bills and Ravens are seeking. We are aware that Harbaugh and McDermott are great coaches. It would have been, I think, at least they should have at least interviewed him, spoke
I
to
agree.
him, maybe like just felt it out a bit. It seemed like they kind of already made their decision and they were in the process of finalizing it and didn't really feel like messing up maybe the relationship with, they didn't want to say, hey, we're not 100% certain that you're our guy. We're going to test this out first. It might have been to do with that. But yeah, I'm sure Dolphins fans are kicking themselves a little bit seeing that McDermott's out there as an option. But hey, Jeff Hafley is the guy.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, what's done is done. And again, I even, I would have preferred that they paused to even give Sean McDermott an interview. To be honest, because it's Sean McDermott. I mean, that's again,
Yeah.
they were already trying to get John Harbaugh in the building, but John Harbaugh and the Giants were like, nope, we're full court press. We're not letting this guy get out of the building, which is what happened. But um, on the onset of everything, Hafley interviewed virtually initially, and he like blew everybody away. Apparently, he
Hmm.
there was a selection committee of multiple people in the Dolphins front office that included new general manager Jon-Eric Sullivan, that included Troy Aikman, Dan Marino, and several other executives that are the higher up mucky mucks for the Miami Dolphins. So apparently, he was just very impressive in that initial interview, and they were going to get him in the building for the second interview. They did. And before he could even leave to go, he was, funny enough, he was going to interview with the Titans next, I believe on Thursday. The Dolphins hired Hafley instead. Um,
Hmm. And the Titans
funny,
got their guy too.
right. Funny enough, before that happened, so John Harbaugh had an interview with the Titans, canceled. He canceled that. And then Stefanski had another interview with the Titans. He canceled that.
They're like, we're not
Hafley
letting another guy get out of the
yeah,
building.
Hafley had another interview planned on Thursday. This is his second interview with the Titans. Canceled that. Then they interviewed Saleh, and they did not let him out of the
They
building.
were like,
So
lock the doors. You're not
yeah,
going
really.
anywhere. We're not losing another one. So,
Right, right. So it's like, I mean, look, I think that's a great hire for the Titans. Is there a little kind of desperation there? Maybe they lost three top candidates. Um, you know, um, so anyway, yeah, Jeff Hafley is the guy. He was the former defensive coordinator for the Packers from 2024 and 2025, both years top 10 defenses in
yeah.
both of those years. Obviously, this past year was a little bit of a struggle because they lost Micah Parsons. When you lose that level of talent, of course, your defense is going to not be as good, as prominent. Obviously, they lost in the playoffs there, but from around the league, from the word, everyone was really high up on Jeff Hafley, regardless, not just the Dolphins. There was multiple teams that had him at the top of their boards, including the Titans, including several of the other teams that are looking for a head coach. So there's some value there, I guess. Um, I'm not going to throw a base judgment out there because I've never seen him be a head coach. Nobody has.
No,
But I will say it is a word of
not at the
caution.
NFL level anyway.
Yeah, is a word of caution because the Dolphins do this very often and it's not worked out for them thus far, but they are very much into giving coaches first time shot at being a head coach. They did that with Michael McDaniel, they did that with Tony Sperano, they did that
Hmm.
with Adam Gase, they did that with Brian Flores, and they did that with Joe Philbin as well. So Joe Philbin was also from the Packers before he joined the Dolphins. So I'm concerned for that reason. This is not something that the Dolphins. This is something that the Dolphins continue to do, and it has not worked out. As I said, the track record is obviously not great with this. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but he's the guy.
He's the guy. I mean, you said this in previous episodes, haven't you, about wanting someone a bit more established that's, not kind of giving that first chance guy. But maybe the difference here is the chemistry between the GM and the head coach. They have a relationship. They're bringing a culture. Maybe they're bringing something that together. There's maybe not that disconnect. Then maybe that's why Stephen Ross decided this was the right move and Jon-Eric Sullivan.
Yeah, no. Again, we were talking right now about him being a favorite. And I think that's obviously as soon as Jon-Eric Sullivan was hired to be the GM, everybody was like, it's probably going to be Jeff Hafley. And it is Jeff Hafley. So there's
Yeah.
not a really big shock there that the Dolphins went that direction with the clear connection that the pair have. I pitched this 2 days ago. I'm going to go a little off topic here. We'll get back to Jeff Hafley as a coach in a moment, but I pitched this a couple days ago. If Jeff Hafley was going to be the guy, and since they already have Jon-Eric Sullivan, there's a certain quarterback that the Dolphins may want to target on the Packers, and that is Malik
I was
Willis.
gonna say this.
Yeah, so Malik Willis, as we know, he started out with the Titans, I believe it was, and he did not do that well initially, but through maturity and through the game, he joined the Packers. He was traded there, and he was fantastic. This past season, he came in for Jordan Love when he was injured, and he showed off some great ball handling skills. He can throw the ball downfield. He can rush. He's a very mobile quarterback. He can make things happen. And he's a free agent in 2026. I
Mhm.
think if the Dolphins are going to be, everyone's calling them Green Bay South now, which I think is really funny.
That's
And
what
if,
happened with the Ravens Chargers
yeah,
switch
exactly,
went
exactly.
into.
So I mean, hey, if that's the case, if you're going to call him Green Bay South, why not go after Malik Willis? The Dolphins need a quarterback. The Tua Tagovailoa era is now over, so why not?
Yeah, I mean, it helps with that identity, bringing in another person familiar with the culture, familiar with the Packers, will be familiar with Jon-Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley. I think that, it seems right. And I think maybe that is what they're paving the way for. Maybe Stephen Ross was aware that the quarterback situation is what it is. And you weren't sure last week when we were speaking about what the quarterback situation was, whether they were going to hold off, whether they were going to try and tank the season. But maybe this gives them another step forward to be able to make the move for Malik Willis.
Yeah, I mean, it would already made sense before all of this happened. Malik Willis was actually getting tied to the Dolphins the moment that Tua
Yeah.
Tagovailoa was benched, and it makes sense because again, very mobile quarterback. He's unproven for the most part. Like he showed what he can do in relief for Jordan Love, and you know, everyone's like, oh man, this guy could potentially be a starter. They need a quarterback. why not bring him in on a 2-year deal and see what happens? At the very
It can't
least,
get worse
right?
over with the
And
situation.
no, definitely. At the very least, like they get him for the 2026 season, which may or may not be a good season regardless, because it's a full reset. And then if he does play decent enough, you're like, great, we're going to give him 2027. And then in that draft, you start to build around him. You start to
Mhm.
bring in those other players and see what
Like a prove
happens.
it deal, being
Yeah.
like, come in, here's what you got. You've got a year to kind of show off and show up and see what we can do.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see what happens with that. I wouldn't be surprised if they go that route. They need a quarterback. They need to figure out. I mean, the first and foremost, the first big step right now for the new GM, Jon-Eric Sullivan, is to figure out this Tua Tagovailoa situation. Do they cut him and absorb that large cap hit, or do they find somebody that wants to trade for him, offload some of that? Contract, sweeten the deal with like a third rounder, which the Dolphins have three in the upcoming draft, and then get rid of the contract as much as you can to then bring in somebody else. Or I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, like we have a couple months, less than 2 months until free agency starts. I would imagine the Dolphins are going to figure out that part before then, as well as with Tyreek Hill, who's got like 50 million cap hit right now, but obviously they save like 22 million, I believe it is, on if they designate him in post June 1st cut, or they're gonna have to rework his contract in a big way if he wants to remain on the roster, which he keeps posting on X that he does and he doesn't. I don't know. Whatever. It's Tyreek Hill. He likes to troll. Who knows? But
People love a little gamble on social media, love to just make
yeah,
stuff up.
yeah, really though. So I mean, that's all Jon-Eric Sullivan's department. Obviously, he's going to work in tandem with the new head coach Jeff Hafley. Going back to Jeff Hafley, so the good news is, I mean, Hafley, like Jon-Eric Sullivan, has over 20 years experience in coaching. Jon-Eric
Mhm.
Sullivan had 20 years experience in player personnel and all that stuff. He's not a first-time head coach, which is good. He was the head coach for Boston College between the 2020 and 2023 seasons. So, I mean, at least he's ran a team. 22 and 26 was his overall record there. Obviously, not great, but it's Boston College. I mean, to be honest, I don't really know much about Boston
Mhm.
College, but I don't think that they're one of the premier programs there. But, he's gone from Albany to Pittsburgh to Rutgers. He's been with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Cleveland Browns, San Francisco 49ers, being a defensive backs coach. That led to him, after Boston College, coming back in the NFL with the Green Bay Packers as DC. And now he's the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. So, now he has to start building his staff. He has to start
Mhm.
bringing in his defensive and offensive coordinators, which I would assume he's not probably going to be keeping anybody around. Currently, Anthony Weaver is interviewing for the Ravens job, second interview. He's interviewing for the Steelers. He's interviewing for quite a few head coach positions. At which point, I think he's probably going to be going and getting his first head coach opportunity. Um,
Yep, still
and
some teams open.
yeah, there's a lot of
Lucky
teams
Bravo
open. The Giants, the Falcons, and the Dolphins are now the
locked
only
off.
ones um, that have their head coaches. So
Mhm.
the Dolphins also have offensive coordinator Frank Smith, but I don't know, will he be retained? Will he be brought back? He wasn't really calling plays. Mike McDaniel was. So I don't know if that would be a situation in which Hafley is going to want to keep him on staff. But then there's also um, senior offensive or senior pass game coordinator Bobby Slowick, who's actually very well respected in the league and in the Dolphins organization. He is another person that potentially could be promoted to be offensive coordinator if Jeff Hafley sees that happening. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
There's a lot of speculation. I think when you're starting from scratch or trying to rebuild, I guess that will be decided based on the quarterback situation. You kind of need something stable at the core. And I think that maybe he might be looking at previous Packers that he's worked with. I think that there was discussions about like the quarterbacks coach, even the maybe co-defensive coordinator, defensive backs coach. Like there are people that he might be looking at to bring in from over there to kind of keep that stability, to keep the what is it, Green Bay South
The Green Bay South, yeah.
situation going ahead. he might be looking over there at kind of bringing in those guys who he kind of has a chemistry or relationship with. But I think there's guys around the league that he has also worked with from college. Like I think the Jaguars linebackers
Yep.
coach, Vikings tight ends coach, passing game coordinator. There are guys around the league that he can kind of pick from that he's already got that chemistry with, and I think that that would probably be the most beneficial move for him to kind of bring in those guys that he's already got that relationship with. And as a defensive minded coach, he's probably going to want to find those guys that, can kind of complement him on the other side of the ball.
No, definitely. And then another one that, speaking of those coordinators that he's had experience with, Brian
Yeah,
Angelico.
the Vikings
Vikings,
passing
yeah.
game coordinator.
I don't know if I said his last name correctly, but the tight ends
Yeah.
passing game coordinator. He worked with Hafley for 10 years from 2006 to
Hmm.
2015, University of Pittsburgh, Rutgers, and then Tampa Bay and the Cleveland Browns. So they have a lot of experience with one another as well. And then, yeah, like
Yeah.
I said, Bobby Slowick is a really big potential. He's actually going to be interviewing for the offensive coordinator job with the Philadelphia Eagles. So if he doesn't land that job and he's still around, Hafley could take a bigger look at him, promote him to offensive coordinator, and see what happens. But that's his first step. He's got to build that staff. I want to say that I read that the Green Bay Packers do not allow coaches to bring over coaches on the current staff. I don't know how true that is, but I read that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I read that because that's why Joe Philbin couldn't bring anybody over, or maybe
Mm.
nobody wanted to go over with Joe Philbin, as as everyone
That was
knows.
the excuse. They were like, "Oh no, we
Yeah,
legally can't, but really we just like,
right. I don't know to be
no,
honest,
yeah,
but Joe Philbin, I mean, he was not a great head coach, so that he just wasn't the leader that he wasn't a leader of men, which is
hmm
what the Dolphins need. Like this entire reset is because the culture in the Dolphins building has not been great for quite a while, and they needed to do a big reset. They have now done that reset, and it's up to Hafley to bring in that toughness and to basically make it known that mediocrity is not acceptable. And that also goes with Jon-Eric Sullivan. One of the biggest things that he talked about in his little introductory video with the Dolphins was he talked about those cold weather games and he talked
hmm
about the physicality and toughness of the team. And I mean, obviously, that's something that everybody says, but the proof is in the pudding, as they say. You have to go out there and make that happen. And he made a very good point in that the division runs through cold weather climates with the New York Jets, with the Buffalo Bills,
yep.
and with New England Patriots. Obviously, the Jets are still a bit of a mess. Who knows when they're going to be able to rebound? But the
You
New
never
England
know.
Right, you
You
never know.
never know. The Bears,
Every year can change, but now the New England Patriots are back in a big way.
yeah.
They're probably going to be going to the Super Bowl because of the Denver Broncos injury issues with Bo Nix.
Hey,
But
look, J.K. Dobbins is coming back to practice.
that's
They might
true.
get
That's
their guy
true.
back.
But regardless of that, those are the two teams that you have to compete with, and those are both cold weather climates, especially in December when football matters. The Dolphins are very, very bad in cold weather games.
Mm.
So, Sullivan talked about building through the draft, through the trenches, which is obviously what every team needs to do. As I've said multiple times, fix that damn O line, get it really rock solid, and, work from there. Sullivan did make a point of saying that Jalen Waddle, Devon Achan, Patrick Paul are among the players that he sees as those foundational building blocks, which I agree with. I would
hmm
have not been shocked. I would have been, a little upset for the Dolphins if they traded Achan or they traded
Mm.
Waddle in the
Be
offseason.
a huge loss.
I still see that potentially happening. But if not, if because of what Sullivan said, those are the core players that he wants to build around, and that makes sense. Patrick Paul is a fantastic offensive lineman. They got Aaron Brewer now there at center position. So, again, the proof is in the pudding. It's up to Sullivan to build this roster, make it rock solid, and it's up to Hafley to build that coaching staff to really turn things around. The Dolphins have the longest tenure of not winning a playoff game now in the NFL. It's been
Mm.
since the year 2000, 25 years. That's not great. So,
No.
you gotta build a winner. You gotta build a winner that can continually compete. My other concern with Hafley is you're going in a situation now where the Dolphins are not in a good position in multiple places, and it's up to you to kind of lead that team. So you have a
Yeah.
messy cap situation, as we brought up before. They were like negative 24 right now in the red, very in the red. They have cap issues because of the Tyreek Hill contract, especially because of the Tua Tagovailoa contract. And so you're looking at a 2026 where you're going to be really thin in terms of being able to acquire free agency players. I don't think that they're going to be doing much there. They probably shouldn't. Um, More talent evaluation for this upcoming season on the current
Hmm.
roster. Then you kind of see what 2027 has to offer. Um, and yeah, you have no quarterback right now. Like you
Yet.
have you
Yet.
yeah, you don't have a quarterback right now. You have Quinn Ewers who had a 3 game audition. He was okay. He was, it's not enough. It's not a sample size. If he were given half the season, sure, but he
Yeah.
wasn't. So,
You don't know.
um,
You don't know what that looks like just yet. And I think that when you don't have a quarterback, it is very hard to kind of build around that because that's your guy. That's who you need to kind of find the pieces for. But like you said about Jeff Hafley kind of being this leader, I think that that's mostly what I've read about him, reading around him. People seem to, I think the Packers are already more like Mike Parsons, obviously going to say nice things about him, but call him a great guy, great person, going to miss his
mhm,
energy. Packers safety also said it would suck if he had to leave the building
mhm,
too. So he's respected by those guys. We saw that not every Ravens player commented on Harbaugh's leaving, and when I think it does make an impact when those players are kind of coming out and openly speaking about how they feel about a guy, and especially leaders like Michael Parsons. So it does speak to his ability to kind of rally his men around him. And I think that he will be able to do that in the Dolphins locker room, especially a Dolphins locker room that really doesn't have much to lose. It's not like you're coming in with to the Ravens, for example, or even the Steelers, where you've kind of had that consistent success over years. What do you really have to lose in Miami? What are you really kind of, I mean, other than another season of having to wait around for your guys to show up? Um, you know, like you said, it's been 25 years, so what's
yeah.
another year?
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of the people, the former players that have been that praise Hafley, another one is Logan Ryan, former NFL cornerback, actually was with Hafley at Rutgers, and he
Mhm.
spoke about Hafley currently. This was like recently, like maybe right before the last Packers playoff game, and he spoke very highly of him. He said he's a very intelligent coach, and he knows how to pull the best out of his players. He said that he saved his career because he was struggling really bad in college, and that Hafley figured out what made him special and had him tune into that. So I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, this was a long time ago. Both were at Rutgers in
But I
2009.
mean, that's young in his career, and he can only
Right.
have gotten better at those things.
Right, exactly. So I mean, yeah, I mean, he's from what players are saying about him, Logan Ryan and all those Packers players. That's great. That's great. We'll see. It's again, it's a this is a prove it league. We'll see what happens. He's got a tall task ahead of him, as does Sullivan. But they're going to be working together to bid this new era of Dolphins football. Hopefully, for Dolphins fans, for the team, the organization that's been waiting so long to be a winner. Obviously, Mike McDaniel had success those first 2 seasons. They went to the playoffs, but they just couldn't win. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I
like you
think
said, the AFC East is getting competitive. They want to be part of the competition. They don't just want the Bills and Patriots coming in and running over them 2 times a year. It's annoying. It's frustrating. We want to turn that division back into something that is worth competing for and is competitive. And I think that it seems like they're building with the mindset of winning. They've brought in guys who are from, a winning team who went to the playoffs this year. They're starting from that. I don't really think famous last words. I don't really think it can get that much worse.
Yeah, yeah. The other concern that I have too, speaking of, going back to the fact that Hafley's coming into the situation with, nothing, basically, it's
Mhm.
a full reset, is he was a winner on defense with really, really good players like
Yeah.
Micah Parsons, and I'm not saying that the Dolphins don't have good defensive players, but the other thing too with Jon-Eric Sullivan is this is a combination of both. You went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. You don't have any of that with the Dolphins right now. So, um,
But do
was
they know
he
how to get those personnel? Do they know how to find them? I mean,
eh,
obviously, it would take a little while to get to the point of having
right?
built like a complete room, but maybe they know how to pick out those gems and maybe they know how to convince some guys to come over to them and join them.
No, yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. I'm just concerned that obviously like their ability to do their job more so Jon-Eric Sullivan is like you went from once you figure out the quarterback position, like, everything else kind of not
Yeah,
falls into place, but it's easier for you to go and build the trenches around that person. You
absolutely.
have you went two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Jordan Love potentially could be that third Hall of Fame quarterback down the line, and so now you're coming into this Dolphins job with nothing. You got nothing right now. You got nothing in that quarterback position. You have to completely figure that part out. And he brought it up. He said, it starts with the quarterback, which duh,
Yeah.
it does, but now it's like, what are you going to do about it? What's going to happen? What kind of magic can you? I'm I'm more not concerned. I'm intrigued by the idea. What kind of roster magic can Sullivan pull off between now and free agency?
Yep.
That's
And
like
the draft is 3 months away. What's he thinking? What's he building? Has he got
right.
had time to really have a deep think about that? Whereas he's probably already been thinking about it in relation to the Packers for a while. Now he's got 3 months to kind of come in, figure it out. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. He's been in this job for 2 decades for a reason. But
Mhm.
like you said, they don't have those people. It's not like you're adding to the Packers or to the Ravens or Steelers or whoever, the other team openings were. You're adding to a team that's kind of a little bit more fragmented than those more complete teams.
Yep. Yep. Exactly that. Yeah, but yeah, and so we have free agency starting early March, and then you have the draft right around the corner in April. So the Dolphins do have a good amount of draft picks. They have the number 11 overall pick, then they have number 43 overall in the second round. Then they have three third round picks, number 75, 87, and
Yeah,
91. So
real good position to be in.
real good position to be. Plus, they have a fourth round, a fifth, and a seventh rounder as well. Could be used to trade up. I don't know,
Mhm.
but right now, in recent years, this is like the best top level places they've been able to pick in. So Sullivan has a good amount of draft capital, which is why I said again, I wouldn't be shocked if they trade players in this
Yeah.
offseason before to stack even more of that capital for the 2026 draft. But we'll see if that's what happens. But what can he pull off between now and then? Obviously, two top things is the Tyreek Hill situation and the Tua Tagovailoa situation. What's going to happen with their contracts? Can we figure out, or can Sullivan figure out a way to work that in a more positive note? Because right now it's just not. It doesn't look good for the Dolphins cap wise.
Mm-mm.
So you
But
know,
think about how great and how much he'll win fans over if he can figure that out. Before the season's even begun, if he can get this done and kind of figure it out and get put them in a good position, he's already, so he's going to be working toward, obviously, but is going to be working towards that to try and win over Miami because people, I think right now, probably, there's not a bad situation to be in, but I don't think either one of them were the top picks for fans, and fans matter. Fans fill the seats, fans,
hmm.
pay the bills essentially. So you don't want to piss people off before the season's begun.
No, definitely. Oh, and by the way, it's 30 million, negative 30 million right now from overthecap.com. They are the fourth worst right now in the red. So, yeah, it's not a great situation. And that's like, obviously, there's going to be some, contract workarounds and extensions and all that. When you get those extensions done, that cap hit dramatically goes down.
Mhm.
But again, you have to figure that part out. If they go into like the true off season with like 10 million, that's a positive, but it's going to take a lot to get to that place. Again, you have to do the math with Tua Tagovailoa. Maybe you eat that cap hit like similar to what the Denver Broncos did with Russell Wilson, and you just move on. Or again, if you find a team that's willing to trade for him, which in my opinion, I think there's somebody out there that might do that, regardless if Tua is a very expensive backup. I think that he might go somewhere else. I don't know, but that's just my feeling on it. I feel if they can get the right contract, like we'll pay this much, you guys take that, we'll give you a third rounder or whatever, we'll sweeten the pot, that they can trade Tua Tagovailoa. We will see. Yeah, But
I
there's a
mean, there
lot
was a
of
time when Tua was the guy, you know? I mean, like he was exciting to watch, he was exciting to kind of, and then obviously everything happened and but he wasn't always that way. And I think some teams sometimes do reflect on the past more than the present and kind of think, well, we can get him back to being that guy again. But I'm not too sure, unfortunately for him. It's really
yeah.
sad. I think what's happened with his career is really sad. I really respected when Mike McDaniel stood beside him when he went
Mm,
through what he went through. Was
mm,
that really the best decision for him physically? I'm not a doctor. I don't know what to say, but
yeah.
it's not been and I think he would like a chance to prove himself. I'm sure a team would like to be the team to help him do that. So it's not completely off the table.
Yeah, I mean, passer rating he led, passing yards he led, completion percentage he led. He
He's been
was
there.
he was good until he wasn't. And
Hmm.
2025, the zip on his ball just disappeared. And you know, there's no telling if he can get that back through training, extensive training. He was training in the offseason with I forgot the name, Nick something. I can't remember his trainer, but the Dolphins stopped him from doing that, and things kind of got wonky. And I was like, why would they do
Mm.
that? But maybe he needs to go back to that guy. I think it was like perform with the four. I can't remember. But anyway, it doesn't
There's all
matter.
kinds of guys around the
Yeah,
league
I
doing
know.
stuff
So it
like
doesn't really matter. But the point being, like, he may be able to get it back with another team. We've seen it happen before
yeah.
where quarterbacks or players are just not done well. They get a change of scenery. They get a new lease on life and their
Hmm.
football life, and then they do well. So
Yeah, that
we'll
relationship's been fragmented for a while, like you said, like benching him. After that, once you've kind of lost the trust of your quarterback, they don't want to perform for you anymore. They don't want to, as much as they want to show up every week and kind of do the best they can, building that relationship and maintaining that relationship really is the key. And once you've pissed someone off, then,
yeah,
I think that
yeah,
they're ready. And he's already seemed to be keen to go elsewhere and not really stick around, even for the right paid. I'm sure it's nice to be
yeah.
sat on the sideline earning money, but you want to be playing the game, especially in your prime years. And so, you know, it's not over for Tua, I don't
No,
think.
I don't. I agree. I don't think it's over for Tua either. I think he's probably going to go somewhere else and either um, kind of like reestablish himself as a backup, potentially go to be a starter again, or he could go somewhere and with some really crazy offseason training, maybe become a starter again
Yeah.
and do well. I don't know, but I don't think it's over from either. I think he had a really terrible year where like uh, I want to say it was Chad Ochocinco that talked about the trauma of like the physical trauma of what he's been through that
Yeah.
caught up to him. And I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, that could be it. The body was like, okay, nope, like, I can't do this right now. So maybe he just needs to relax a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
These are big what ifs, but I don't think his career is over by any means. I think he's going to go somewhere else. And you're right. He did say that he would love to go somewhere else. Of course, you either want to be there out in the field being a starter or potentially being in a situation where you can become starter again. Obviously, that's
Hmm.
not going to be with the Dolphins. It's very evident that's not going to happen anymore. They're moving on. He needs to move on, figure out a way to get him to that next place, figure out a way that it's cap friendly for the Dolphins, for Sullivan, and there you go.
Yeah. I mean, it's that simple, guys. Get it done.
It's that simple. Listen to us. We know what we're talking about. We're totally front office executives
Yeah,
and
yeah. I've been in the front office for 3, 4, 5 decades.
exactly. We know what we're talking about. Just listen to
No.
us. No, but I mean,
John Harry Sullivan's, he's got the experience. He knows what he's doing. And I don't think he would have taken on as big of a, cap hit as he has done without the knowledge of what he was going to do with that. And so I'm sure that will all become clear in the next few weeks.
definitely. Again, this is the first full reset for the Dolphins in over 10 years. It needed to happen. It should have happened sooner, but it happened now. Now you're back. You're a clean slate, essentially. You're in a situation where myself included, a lot of people don't believe that they're going to be competitive in 2026 for obvious reasons. The cap hit issue, the cap space issue. I mean, they have a lot of really good. They have a really good draft position right now, which is great. So it's like obviously a lot of those players may work out, may not work out. They might be developmental, but that's good. You get 2026 in, you throw them out there, see what they can do. Similarly to what they did with a lot of rookies in 2025, minus Jonas Savanea, who was not a good offensive lineman, but maybe he's going to be able to elevate his game in 2026. We will see. But they do have those foundational players, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Build on them, find that quarterback, see what happens. 2026 may not be that year, but again, we don't know. We don't know how Hafley is. We don't know what Sullivan can do. We've seen teams go from absolute bottom to the top in a year
Hmm.
in similar
Happens.
situations. The Broncos just did that. I myself saw the Dolphins go from 1-15 to winning the division the year after. That was the last time they were really
Miracles
good.
happen.
Yeah, things do happen. We will see. Obviously, we're going to be talking more about that in the coming weeks. Next week, we'll be back to talk about who Hafley is bringing on for his coaching staff. That is his first and top job. And then we will start talking about free agency and seeing what's going to happen. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Billy, for joining me once again. This has been Roundtable Dolphins episode 5, I believe I said earlier. Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, but now this new era of Dolphins football starts now.